specifically talk about cellular respiration. Now, cellular respiration, also known as aerobic respiration, is the release of a relatively large amount of energy in cells by the breakdown of food substance in the presence of oxygen. Now, in both plants and animals, this reaction happens. So please do not confuse cellular respiration with breathing or respiration or anything related to the respiratory system. They are completely separate entities. So cellular respiration has an overall reaction that has a formula that looks something like this. It starts with glucose, C6H12O6, plus 6 molecules of oxygen is going to yield 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and 6 molecules of water, and ATP, meaning energy. Now, does this formula look familiar? Well, it should, because if you rearrange everything, if you were to actually take your substances here, and I'm circling it in white, and place them over on the reactants side, and take your products and put your reactants and put them on the product side, you would have photosynthesis. So cellular respiration is almost the exact opposite formula as photosynthesis. Again, please make sure that you know exactly what this formula is and stands for. Now, as I just mentioned, cellular respiration is the opposite of photosynthesis. So here I have both formulas for you, so you can actually take a look at them. So photosynthesis, if you remember, starts with carbon dioxide and water. It needs energy from the sun in order to create a molecule of glucose and some oxygen. So cellular respiration is where we're going to take that glucose and some oxygen, and we're going to break them down. So we're going to yield into carbon dioxide, some water, and of course that energy, because that's needed to begin, but that's really the end product here. We want the energy out of cellular respiration. This is something that your cells do every single second of the day. Now, here's a couple pictures to show you how photosynthesis and cellular respiration are related to each other. So if we take a look at the picture on the left-hand side, photosynthesis is what's kind of shown here in green. So it starts in the chloroplasts. Remember the photosynthesis cycle, or the photosynthesis process that happens, begins with the chloroplasts, and it takes in light energy. It creates glucose and oxygen, and both of those, if you notice these arrows here, both of those are used in cellular respiration. So cellular respiration begins in the mitochondria. This is that powerhouse of the cell that we talked about way back in chapter 2 or 3. So we have the powerhouse of the cell here, and that's going to release carbon dioxide and water, which again will be used for photosynthesis, creating glucose and oxygen that will be used for cellular respiration, and we have a cycle going on here. So light energy is used to make the glucose, whereas energy is expelled once that glucose is broken down. In the picture on the right, it's sort of the same picture. It's just another picture of the cycle, just drawn in a different way. It starts with light energy being absorbed by the chloroplasts. It goes through its photosynthesis. We have organic molecules, meaning the glucose. We have oxygen being produced. Both of those are used in cellular respiration in your mitochondria, releasing ATP, which is the actual term for energy here, and releasing carbon dioxide and water, which again be reused. So these are really, it's a cyclical process, and their formulas are opposite each other. So please remember that as we go through this lesson. So as I've mentioned before already, cellular respiration happens in the mitochondrion. So in a cell, in the mitochondrion, this is where cellular respiration happens. Now if you remember that mitochondria sort of looks like a kidney bean shape, it's got all of these inner membranes in here, and we'll sort of take a look at the inside of a mitochondria as we move forward in this video. Now, cellular respiration occurs in 3 main stages, so we actually have 3 steps in cellular respiration. The first step is known as glycolysis, and this literally means splitting of sugar. The second step of cellular respiration is called the Krebs cycle. In some books, it's called the citric acid cycle. Mostly you will see it as the Krebs cycle. And then the third stage is the electron transport chain. Now, all three steps here are part of the process of cellular respiration. You need to know all three steps. So please make sure you follow through with this video as we move into specifically talking about each individual step, because there's different things that happen in each step. So are you ready? All right, here we go. So in stage 1 of cellular respiration, this is called glycolysis. Now remember, this literally means splitting of sugar. Now this can occur with or without oxygen, and if oxygen is present or not, it actually goes into two separate stages. So in this particular stage, if oxygen is present, it is the first stage of cellular respiration. Now we're going to continue this portion of the video as if oxygen was present. However, if oxygen is not present, it's going to go through a process of fermentation. Now in the next video, we're going to talk about fermentation. So for right now, just assume that this process occurs with oxygen. Now, stage 1 of glycolysis happens in the cytoplasm. So before we even make it into the mitochondria, the cytoplasm is the first stage where glycolysis happens. And in the picture here over on the right, you notice this big blue circle, and it's sort of showing you this is glycolysis right here. So we have the glucose molecule coming into the cell membrane. Now this is the cell. All this purple stuff here is your cytoplasm. We have glycolysis occurring right here. It's going to occur in the cytoplasm. Now, really, if we were to go on to ACE biology, if we were to move into upper level biology's college level, you would know exactly what happens in glycolysis. All you need to know is that it happens in the cytoplasm. And what it creates, the goal basically of glycolysis, is it produces 2-pyruvate. And just know that this pyruvate is created. The pyruvate is going to be used in the next stage. And this process of glycolysis has produced 2 ATP. So for glycolysis, you need to know that it happens in the cytoplasm and it creates 2 pyruvate and 2 ATP. Alrighty, so that's all you need to know for this process. Glycolysis happens in the cytoplasm. Its goal is to produce 2 pyruvate to use in the next stage and 2 ATP. Now the second stage is known as the Krebs cycle. Now the Krebs cycle actually occurs within the mitochondria. So once glycolysis has happened, where the pyruvate is produced, this pyruvate now enters into the mitochondria, which in the picture is this orangey kind of thing. Now in the Krebs cycle, the main goals are to break down that pyruvate that was created in stage 1. Once that pyruvate gets broken down, it actually creates electrons, which are going to be used for the next stage. This is the stage that releases the carbon dioxide. So this is where the waste product comes from. And it also produces 2 ATP. So the Krebs cycle, the big important things to remember, happens in the matrix of the mitochondria. It breaks down the pyruvate and it's going to create electrons for the next stage. It releases carbon dioxide and it produces 2 ATP. So 2 molecules of energy are basically produced from this stage. So already the stage 1, we have 2 ATP, so 2 molecules of energy. Stage 2, 2 molecules of ATP, or energy. And now in the stage 3, which is known as the electron transport chain, this is the main step here. This is the big one that produces the most ATP molecules. So the electron transport chain, the third stage, occurs in the inner membrane of the mitochondria. So if you take a look at the picture, it's in that blue circle over here on the right hand or on the left hand side of the orange mitochondria. Now the goals here are basically to produce your 32 molecules of ATP. And it's going to use those electrons that were formed from the Krebs cycle. So if you all come down to it, we have this tally that's going on, and the tally of molecules of ATP. 36 total ATP molecules are produced from aerobic respiration. So glycolysis produces 2, the Krebs cycle produces 2, the electron transport chain produces 32. So you actually get a total number of 36 ATPs, or 36 molecules of energy. Now, just to let you know, and you may want to write this down, ATP, as we've stated before in the previous video or in class, ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. It's important that you know the difference between ATP and ADP, adenosine diphosphate. So please make sure that you are aware of both of those.